The headline news here is it's raining in LA.
Oh, that news.
It's not happened for months.
That's important, right, as well?
It is, yeah. It's this weird paradox though, because they need the rain to get the wildfires under control, but they don't want too much rain because there's a risk of landslides from the sort of burn scarred areas. But it's weird. First time I've heard rain here in months this morning.
Anyway, it's been a busy weekend.
No, I get along with him well. I like him a lot. He's liberal, which is a little bit different for me. But I think he's a very good person. I think he's done a very good job thus far.
That's Donald Trump speaking to journalists on Air Force One about our own Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, over the weekend.
Yes, this was his first gaggle, as it's known. The president came to the back of the presidential plane for what was yet another informal Q&A with reporters, where we got a whirlwind of news, or at least snippets on so many different things, on the UK relationship. And I think those words from Trump about Starmer were a big relief for the British government. And as we record, Trump appears to have declared his first actual trade war. There is loads to cover, so strap in.
I'm James Matthews.
I'm Martha Kelner.
And I'm Mark Stone.
And this is Day 8 of Trump 100. OK, Mark and Martha, he's now spoken to the UK Prime Minister. Number 10 have said in a statement, they've said this: the Prime Minister paid tribute to President Trump's role in securing the landmark ceasefire and hostage deal in Gaza. The President welcomed the release of Emily Damari, one of the hostages from Britain, and sent his best wishes to her family. They discussed the importance of working together for security in the Middle East.
Yeah, this is known as a readout. Whenever two leaders speak, both governments then issue a readout, their statement of how they think the call went. And very often it's the case, isn't it, that we kind of have to dissect the diplomatic language that's used in the readout and then interpret how the call actually went. So we haven't, at the time of recording, had the US government's readout of this call, but the British government's one went on to say that they had discussed trade and the economy, the Prime Minister setting out how they are deregulating to boost growth, and it concluded by saying the two leaders stressed the importance of close and warm ties between the UK and the US.
It's interesting, isn't it? These warm words for Keir Starmer. There was a meeting back in Trump Tower in September with Starmer. David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, was there. That went well, but they've not exactly had the best of friendships.
No, I think it is fair to say that the British government has been somewhat uneasy about the journey that we've had since, in fact, before Donald Trump was elected, but since as well. The two sides have not clearly seen completely eye to eye. The suggestion that Peter Mandelson will be the next UK ambassador here, well, he was called a moron by someone in the inner Trump circle, certainly during the election campaign. That's not great. And then, of course, there's Elon Musk. I mean, he has had so much to say about Keir Starmer.
It's funny, isn't it? Because with everything in this Trump administration, Elon Musk is never far away from the controversy. And I'm sure people will remember that Elon Musk was tweeting or Xing just a couple of weeks ago, accusing Starmer of a cover-up over a historic grooming gang, calling him to be removed as PM. He even wrote prison for Starmer at one point. So obviously, this is Donald Trump saying this and not Elon Musk, but it's not like the president was weighing in to defend Keir Starmer at that point. So I think it is surprising that we've got sort of such a fulsome endorsement of the Prime Minister from the president.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of noise over the past few months. But behind that, I think certainly when you talk to the British government, that they will say that the relationship, the bedrock of the so-called special relationship is always going to be there. And yes, there's going to be noise. Yes, there's going to be the comments from people like Elon Musk. But at the very heart of it, Donald Trump loves Britain. And even though the political relationship may not be very aligned, but the bedrock of the relationship is there. And you only have to look at the fact that the Churchill bust is apparently back in the Oval Office. There we go.
Yeah, the Churchill bust that was removed by Obama went into the corridor outside, didn't
it? Went into a cupboard somewhere.
What does Trump, do you think, what does he want from a relationship with Starmer's Britain?
Compliance? I think they're looking for the UK to be their partner, yes, but on their terms, on Trump's terms. Remember, Britain would love a trade deal with the United States. Ever since Brexit, a trade deal with the US was something that was the UK was looking forward to doing. And remember, of course, that the UK no longer needs to comply with EU regulations. I think you have to think about everything right now as purely transactional. That is what Trump is all about. I heard him in the Oval Office the other day complaining that the European Union doesn't buy American cars. Well, that's one quite tangible, easy way to understand the way things could work. If Britain was to turn around tomorrow and say, do you know what? We're going to buy a load of American cars. They could do that because they're freed up from EU regulation. If Keir Starmer was to announce a new deal where America could ship a load of their cars to UK, transactionally, he might then get something in return.
And of course, at the heart of the relationship is a man by the name of Peter Mandelson, the man who would be our man in Washington, UK ambassador. But Trump is yet to confirm his selection. It's by no means certain.
Well, again, I wonder how much noise there is going on here. I mean, let me explain how it works. So the noise is that apparently because they think he's a moron, they may not agree to him becoming the new ambassador. The facts are the US has already issued its agreement in principle that Lord Mandelson can be UK ambassador to the US. What needs to happen now is that he has to come to America, which he will do in early February, with letters of credence from the King. Donald Trump loves the King, so that might go down well. He will then formally present himself with his credentials, first to the State Department, then to Donald Trump. In theory, Donald Trump could say, do you know what? We don't want you here because we think you've got unhealthy links to China, or, you used to be friends with Jeffrey Epstein. So in theory, he could reject it. In reality, I think it's very, very unlikely that Trump would choose to die on that hill.
Mandelson's an interesting choice, I think, on a superficial level, and there's a lot of superficiality around. You look at Trump world, look at the politicians, they're all square-jawed prize guys, even the women. And, Peter Mandelson, he has the look of a character who would die early in a mobster movie, I think. In the UK, clearly we see beyond that. You look at his CV, and he's a heavyweight, former EU trade commissioner and so on. His EU work will stand him in good stead for his efforts, should they come to pass, to reheat the US-UK trade deal. That's what Starmer needs and wants, to have him respected and accepted. Without that, that downgrades the UK. It undermines its interests, I think. Actually, given the discussion and the reluctance already, I think some of that has already happened.
I thought it was interesting that the only Labour Party figure who attended the inauguration was Lord Glassman, Maurice Glassman. The Team Trump is, quote, very, very sceptical about the Labour government. So I think that is the bedrock of the special relationship is there, but politically they're sceptical. Will Mandelson get confirmed? Yes, I think he will. I'll put that. You can hold that against me down the line where he's when it's rejected.
All right.
Everything moving so fast, but not long before we started recording this podcast, he went on his Truth Social account announcing the US would slap emergency 25% tariffs on all Colombian goods coming into the US and would raise that to 50% in a week's time. And this is all because Colombia has refused to accept US military planes carrying migrants being deported as part of those mass deportations that President Trump has promised and is now enacting.
Yeah, the Colombian president wrote on X that the US can't treat Colombians like criminals, to which Jason Miller, Trump's communications strategist, replied in capital letters FAFO, which the kids reliably inform me means F around and find out. It's diplomacy via social media, but it's not very diplomatic, clearly. Trump is under pressure to boost the numbers of migrants that he's ridding the country of. His advisors are telling him the numbers right now are similar to the Biden days. So it will be interesting to see who blinks first with Colombia. Mexico isn't happy at the situation either. And if there is resistance at the delivery end, then that raises questions about the implications inside the United States. Do we see a repeat of the kind of scenes that have hurt Trump in the past. Kids, cages, camps perhaps, tents, large numbers parked inside the United States. He won't want that. He needs a quick result.
I read the Truth Social message just before we started recording on Colombia. It's just fascinating. It's just like a neat two fingers. It's like, right, you won't take our planes. Well, I'm declaring war, trade war. And he's just slapping all these demands on Colombia. He's stopping visas from being issued. He's closing the consular section of the American embassy in Bogota. And it's amazing. But I think it's a sign of what's to come. And we were talking, I think, in Friday's episode about who's going to test Trump first. Well, this is a test of Trump's defiance by the Colombian government. They're saying, we're not going to take that plane back. And he said, well, in that case, watch this.
Yeah, the question being, what muscle can Colombia and Mexico exert, I suppose?
A test coming up too for Donald Trump's top diplomat, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. It's his first foreign trip this week, and he's heading to Panama. Panama's one of the US's closest allies in Latin America, but Donald Trump has been very vocal about his plans to take back the Panama Canal, which he's repeated online and at rallies, and even in his inauguration speak, of course. And that's causing lots of tensions, as you might imagine, in the region.
Yeah, I wonder whether Marco Rubio is going to be one of the first casualties of the Trump administration. He's not closely aligned politically with Trump, but I just wonder, and I've heard this a bit over the course of the past 4 or 5 days here in Washington, people questioning whether that relationship might not last as long as some others have. But we'll see. His first foreign trip is going to be very interesting, and we'll see how transactional Trump translates when it's Marco Rubio doing his bidding in places like Panama.
Here's a question. What does Colombia export to the United States? Fingers on buzzers.
Coffee?
Probably. What else?
Chocolate?
Probably.
So, legally or illegally?
Sorry. That is the question. Yeah, something you can put a tariff on. Starts with a P. Pearls. Yeah, pearls and oil. There you go. So much been going on with Trump internationally that we've almost run out of time to talk about the stuff that's been going on here in Washington, D.C. But before we go, we have to speak to you, Martha, about Trump and exacting revenge on his foes.
Yeah, that's what it feels like at the moment, doesn't it? Anthony Fauci, who is a face and a voice that people will know well, he was the country's top health official during COVID. He's had his security protection removed. He has in the past received death threats and hired his own security. He's been outspoken in his criticism of Donald Trump. 2 other men who have also criticised Donald Trump, John Bolton, and perhaps less so Mike Pompeo, so perhaps more of a surprise that he's involved. They've also had their security removed. Both Pompeo and Bolton have received alleged assassination attempts from Iran. So I think there's a real question here to be asked about whether Donald Trump is in fact exacting revenge on his enemies here.
It's more than that, in a sense. I mean, if John Bolton, for example, was assassinated by Iran or someone else, because of his stature as a former national security advisor for the US government, Trump would have to retaliate if that assassination was to take place. So in a sense, Trump is creating a problem for himself, because there's no question that there are multiple threats against John Bolton. We have him in the studio here quite often. He comes into the bureau. When he comes in, Secret Service was the case, no longer, because he doesn't have Secret Service security now, but they would come in the half hour before, they'd sweep the place, then he'd come in and do his interview. All of that's gone.
Donald Trump's saying if they're that bothered about it, they can pay for this security detail themselves, which I believe John Bolton will do.
In Washington, D.C., Secret Service are everywhere, because of the number of potential targets.
No, he's Secret Service on the back, which always makes me laugh.
Well, they do, yeah. And you know what? Around the corner from me, in fact, not far from you, man, that's how exclusive our neighbourhood is. You say that. Fauci, he actually jogs along the canal down and close to where we are. So I mean, these people are out and about, in public life, in the streets. And one thing that will worry them is the January the 6th pardons. If that was a validation of violence on behalf of Donald Trump, what are the implications for the likes of Fauci, the likes of Bolton? They will feel more vulnerable for it.
Because those who've been released feel emboldened. I realized over the weekend that I need to actually keep a sort of updated notes section of my phone to keep up with what's going on, because there have been so many announcements just over the course of the past weekend. And our job is to kind of work out what's noise, what's not, what's important, what's not. And I think that diplomats around this city are having the same challenges as well. They don't know what to report back to their capitals about what's relevant and what's just noise.
Yeah, we're all suffering together. If you want help figuring out what matters and what doesn't, we're here to try to figure it out with you and for you. Please do click on the follow button wherever you're listening. And remember, you can now email us on trump100@sky.uk. We'd love to hear from you. That's it for day 8, but don't worry, we'll be back tomorrow for day 9 of Trump 100.
Bye for now.
Bye.